There are kisses that should never happen, and there are kisses that change absolutely everything. I'm going to tell you the story of Sophie Dubois and Catherine Moreau, the judge who destroyed her family 23 years ago. The woman Sophie never thought she'd see again, let alone fall in love with. Sophie returned to Lyon for her cousin's wedding. After too much champagne and a reckless bet with her best friend, she walked straight up to the elegant woman at the bar. The woman in the navy suit who once signed the document that sent her father to prison for 2 decades. And she kissed her, in front of 200 people. When Catherine Moreau's eyes met Sophie's in that moment, something shifted between them. It wasn't just shock. It was desire. It was the beginning of a secret that would unfold in midnight conversations, stolen touches, and a passion neither of them could deny. Because what Sophie didn't know was that Catherine had been searching for months to find evidence to free her father, and that falling in love with the daughter of the man she convicted meant risking everything she'd built: her reputation, her career, her entire life. This isn't just a story about justice. It's a story about impossible forgiveness, about love born from the ashes of injustice, and about a woman who had to choose between her family and the one person who made her believe in second chances. Stay with me until the end to hear this story. See you soon. The box had no business being there. It should never have been shoved under that main table at a wedding where everyone pretended happiness came naturally. But there it was, rusted at the corners, with a judicial seal still visible on the top right corner. My hands shook as I held those yellowed papers, each one bearing the same signature that now danced 3 feet away from me, champagne flute in hand, laughing as if she hadn't shattered entire worlds. Rebecca Carter, District Court Judge. The woman who sent my father to rot for 23 years in a South Carolina prison. And me, drunk, furious, broken, had just accepted the worst dare of my life, to kiss her in front of everyone at this godforsaken reception. Fate has a twisted sense of humor, or maybe I'm just an idiot. The Magnolia Ballroom in downtown Charleston gleamed with golden lights bouncing off crystal glasses. 200 guests celebrated my cousin Emily's wedding as if the world was perfect, as if there weren't secrets buried beneath Italian marble floors and white linen tablecloths. Me, Sarah Mitchell, 26 years old, unemployed architect, and carrier of a grudge that had been eating me alive, sat at table 7, furthest from the family section. The message was clear. You're welcome, but not too welcome. Another round, Sarah, demanded Jessica, my best friend since high school, waving her empty glass in front of my face. This wedding is deader than my love life. Everything's deader than your love life, I shot back, but reached for the bottle of Maker's Mark we'd hidden under the table. My Aunt Helen would kill us if she saw. But at this point in the evening, with 4 glasses of wine and 2 shots in my system, I didn't give a damn. The band was playing Sweet Home Alabama for the 3rd time. The older guests danced with that forced enthusiasm that only alcohol and weddings can produce. My mother, Margaret, sat at the main table wearing that tight smile she'd perfected over years of pretending everything was fine. Ever since my father, David Mitchell, was sentenced in 2001, our family had become experts at faking normalcy. Smile, Sarah. Wave, Sarah. Don't mention the prison, Sarah. Look who just arrived, Jessica murmured, elbowing me in the ribs. I looked up. Rebecca Carter crossed the ballroom like she owned the place. 42 years old, black hair cut in an elegant bob that brushed her shoulders, navy blue dress that fit perfectly on a figure that defied her age, low heels, no flashy jewelry except a silver watch that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. She walked with that quiet confidence that only comes from being used to making decisions that change lives. I hadn't seen her in person since that day in court. I was 3 then, too young to understand why my dad was crying, why Mom was screaming, Why that woman in the gray suit pounded her gavel and said words that sounded like death sentences. But I grew up staring at her photograph in the legal files my mother kept in a shoebox, alongside the letters my father sent from the Ridgeland Correctional Institution. "It's her," I said, my voice coming out harsher than intended. "Who?" "The judge. Rebecca Carter. The one who destroyed my family." Jessica nearly spit out her drink. "What the hell is she doing here?" "She's friends with Emily's mother. They went to college together or something," I replied, feeling the bourbon and poison mix in my stomach. My mother nearly fainted when she saw her at the ceremony. Rebecca approached the bar, where the bartender served her what looked like a gin and tonic. From my position, I could see her profile. High cheekbones, thin lips, a small scar on her left eyebrow I'd never noticed in photographs. She looked tired, as if carrying the weight of her own decisions had aged her in ways time couldn't explain. "Sarah, your face right now," Jessica warned. "You look like you're about to commit murder. Maybe I should. Or you could do something more fun." I looked at her suspiciously. Jessica had that expression that always preceded the worst ideas. "No. You don't even know what I'm going to say." "I know whatever it is, it's going to end badly." "Dare," Jessica declared, slapping the table with her palm. "If you don't accept, you pay for our next drinking session. 10 bottles of good bourbon. Not that cheap shit." The other 3 girls at our table, Emily's college friends I barely knew, leaned forward, intrigued. Alcohol turns people into drama-hungry spectators. "What's the dare?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer didn't matter. When Jessica threw out dares, I accepted them. I always had. "You kiss the judge." The silence at our table was absolute. Even the music seemed to fade for a second. "You're fucking insane." "Scared?" Jessica challenged me with that shark smile she'd perfected. "The great Sarah Mitchell, who mocked the university dean at graduation, who spray-painted political graffiti on City Hall, is afraid of a kiss. It's not fear, it's common sense. It's cowardice," one of the other girls sang, whose name I think was Monica. The bourbon made the room spin slightly. Or maybe it was rage. Rebecca remained at the bar, completely oblivious to the conspiracy being woven 20 yards away. She was laughing with the bartender about something I couldn't hear, and for just one damn second she seemed human. Not a monster in a suit signing sentences, but a woman who probably also had invisible scars. 10 bottles, I repeated. 10. "And if I do it, you pay for our drinks for the next 6 months. Deal." I stood up. My legs weren't as steady as I'd have liked, but pride and alcohol are a dangerous combination that erases survival instinct. The girls let out nervous giggles. Jessica raised her glass in a silent toast. I crossed the ballroom. Every step was an act of defiance against everything my mother had taught me. Keep your head down, don't make scenes, don't confront powerful people. But Sarah Mitchell had never been good at following rules, and tonight, with 4 glasses of liquid courage, I was particularly rebellious. Rebecca saw me approaching. Her eyes, dark honey, almost coffee-colored, settled on me with polite curiosity. There was no recognition. Why would there be? I was a 3-year-old child the last time we met. Now I was an adult woman with chestnut hair down to my waist, a red dress my mother considered too daring, and a rage that had been feeding itself for 23 years. "Excuse me," I said, my voice coming out firmer than I expected. "Can I buy you a drink?" Rebecca tilted her head slightly, surprised but not uncomfortable. "That's very kind, but I already have one," she replied, raising her gin and tonic. Her voice was softer than I remembered from the court recordings I'd obsessively watched on YouTube, almost warm. "Then maybe I can offer you something else." "Like what?" I stepped closer. The space between us reduced to inches. I could smell her perfume, something floral with wood notes, and see the small mole on her neck, just below her left ear. For a moment, just 1 second loaded with static electricity and bad decisions, I hesitated. Then I kissed her. My lips found hers in contact that should have been quick, defiant, simple fulfillment of the dare. But something changed in the microsecond we touched. Rebecca went completely still, her body tense like a guitar string about to snap. She didn't push me away, didn't scream. Her lips, soft, slightly cool from the ice in her drink, parted with an exhale that sounded like surprise and something else I couldn't identify. The world stopped. Or maybe just my drunk brain processed it in slow motion. I could hear my heart hammering against my ribs, feel the warmth of her breath mixing with mine, sense the almost imperceptible tremor in her hands that still held her glass. When I pulled back, our gazes locked. Rebecca's eyes were wide open, dark honey melted under the ballroom's golden lights. There was confusion there, yes, but also something darker, more dangerous, something that looked suspiciously like attraction. "What?" she started to say, her voice barely a whisper. Behind us, someone dropped a glass. The sound of crystal shattering against marble floor was like a gunshot. Nearby conversations stopped. Faces turned toward us. My mother stood by the main table, hand over her mouth, her eyes reflecting a horror I'd never seen before. "Shit," I muttered. Rebecca blinked, as if coming out of a trance. Her expression changed from confused to alarmed as she processed what had just happened. Not just the kiss. That could be explained as a drunk woman's impulsive act. But the audience. 200 people had just witnessed a district court judge being kissed by a complete stranger in the middle of a wedding. I tried to say something, anything that could turn this disaster into something less catastrophic. "Who are you?" Rebecca asked, her voice now firmer, professional, the judge's mask sliding back into place. Before I could answer, Jessica appeared at my side, grabbing my arm. "We need to leave. Now." "Wait, Now, Sarah." I let myself be dragged toward the exit as the murmur of conversations turned into a roar. I could see my Aunt Helen approaching with furious steps. My mother remained frozen like a pillar of salt. Emily, the bride, stared at me with a mixture of disbelief and fury. But when I looked back one last time, toward the bar where Rebecca still stood with her half-finished drink, our eyes met once more. And in that look, in that stolen second amid the chaos, I saw something that froze my blood and burned my veins simultaneously. She didn't look away either. My mother's phone exploded at 3 a.m. 27 voice messages, each more hysterical than the last. I didn't listen to them. I was lying in my one-bedroom apartment in downtown Charleston, staring at the water-stained ceiling, with the taste of Rebecca's gin and tonic still ghosting on my lips. Jessica was snoring on the living room couch. We'd escaped the wedding in an Uber driven by a guy named Marcus who didn't ask questions when we told him to floor it like the devil was chasing us. During the 20-minute ride from the Magnolia Ballroom to my apartment, neither of us said a word. What could we say? I'd kissed the judge who destroyed my family in the middle of my cousin's wedding. Apologies seemed inadequate. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a text from my older brother, Michael. "Mom's crying. Aunt Helen wants to kill you. Emily says you humiliated her. What the hell were you thinking?" I wasn't thinking. That was the problem. I got out of bed, walked to the small kitchen and poured a glass of water that I drank in 3 long gulps. The apartment was silent, except for Jessica's snoring and the constant hum of the old refrigerator. Outside, Charleston slept under a starless sky, polluted by city lights. I opened the drawer where I kept important documents. Beneath my birth certificate and college degree was the manila folder I'd stolen from my mother's house 3 years ago. It contained copies of everything from my father's case, the tax fraud accusations, evidence presented by the prosecution, testimonies from witnesses I'd never met, and finally, the sentence. 23 years in prison. I opened the folder. The yellowed pages felt fragile under my fingers. I'd read these documents hundreds of times, memorizing every word like verses from a profane Bible. I knew the prosecution's arguments better than my own college papers. I knew exactly what evidence had convinced the jury that David Mitchell, 42-year-old accountant, devoted husband and father of 2, had defrauded the U.S. government of $8 million. But what I never understood was why the sentence was so severe. My father's lawyers had argued it was a nonviolent crime, that my father had no criminal record, that he had a family. The prosecutor had asked for 15 years. Judge Rebecca Carter had sentenced 23. 8 years difference. 8 years my father lost, watching his children grow only through photographs sent by mail. 8 years where my mother aged prematurely, working double shifts at a textile factory to pay bills my father could no longer cover. Why 23 years, Rebecca? The question had haunted me for decades, and tonight, drunk and stupid, I'd thought kissing her would be a form of revenge, make her feel uncomfortable, ruin her evening like she'd ruined 23 years of my life. But when my lips touched hers, when I felt that almost imperceptible tremor run through her body, when I saw that look, dark honey full of something that looked dangerously like desire, I didn't feel revenge. I felt electricity. I felt hunger. I felt something I should never feel for the woman who destroyed my family. "You're an idiot, Sarah," I told the empty apartment. The sun was starting to filter through the window when I finally fell asleep, still with the folder open on my chest, still with the ghost of that kiss burning my lips. Jessica left at 10 in the morning, with a monumental hangover and an apology that sounded more like obligation than sincerity. "I didn't think you'd actually do it," she said, while putting on her shoes at the entrance. "I thought you'd chicken out at the last second." "I should have." "Yeah, probably. But hey, at least now you have a crazy story to tell. My family hates me." "Your family hated you before for stupid reasons," Jessica responded with that brutal honesty that was her trademark. "At least now they have a real reason." I couldn't argue with that twisted logic. My family had never completely forgiven me for moving out of the family home at 22, for studying architecture instead of something practical, like accounting or nursing, for having political opinions they considered radical, for wearing clothes they considered provocative. My sexuality was a topic we all politely ignored. Mom knew I wasn't interested in men. She simply preferred to pretend I'd change my mind someday. When Jessica left, I called my mother. It went to voicemail. I called Michael. Also voicemail. I sent a text. "I'm sorry. I was drunk. It was stupid." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "Mom doesn't want to talk to you. Give her a few days." A few days. As if a few days could erase the image of her daughter kissing the woman who'd tormented her for over 2 decades. I spent the rest of Sunday cleaning the apartment with obsessive meticulousness, as if scrubbing floors could erase the chaos I'd created. I washed dishes, organized the closet, changed sheets, cleaned windows until the glass shone without a single smudge. Around 4 in the afternoon, when I was considering reorganizing my bookshelf alphabetically, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Sarah Mitchell?" A female voice, professional, unknown. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Caroline Hayes. I'm legal assistant to Judge Rebecca Carter. She asked me to contact you." My heart stopped for a full second. "How did you get my number?" "The judge has her resources. Caroline responded with a tone suggesting this wasn't the right question. She would like to meet with you. Tomorrow, if possible. There's a coffee shop called The Daily Grind on the corner of King and Market. Do you know the place? Yes, but 2 p.m. Please be punctual. The judge has a very tight schedule. Wait, why does she want to see me? There was a pause. I could hear keyboard typing in the background. That would need to be discussed with her directly, Caroline said. See you tomorrow, Sarah. The call ended. I stared at the phone like it was an alien object. Rebecca Carter wanted to see me. The judge who'd sent my father to prison. The woman I'd kissed in an act of drunken rebellion less than 24 hours ago wanted to meet me at a public coffee shop in downtown Charleston. This was a trap. It had to be. Maybe she was going to sue me for harassment or public humiliation. Could you sue someone for kissing without consent? Probably. I called Jessica. What do I do? What do you want to do? I don't know. Flee the country, maybe. Sarah, breathe. It's just coffee, public, daytime. What's the worst that could happen? She could arrest me. Judges don't arrest people. That's what cops do. She could order my arrest. For a kiss? Don't be dramatic. But my entire life had been drama since my father was sentenced. Why would this be different? Monday dawned overcast, with that threat of rain Charleston promised but rarely delivered. I put on 3 different outfits before settling on dark jeans, a white cotton blouse, and a denim jacket. Casual but presentable. Like I was going to a job interview where the interviewer could ruin your life with a single signed document. I arrived at the Daily Grind at 1:45 p.m. The coffee shop was small and cozy, with walls decorated with old Charleston photographs and the constant smell of freshly ground coffee floating in the air. Maybe 10 tables, most occupied by college students with laptops or older couples sharing pastries. I chose a table in the back, with a view of the door. Tactical position. You can always see who enters, who exits. My father taught me that in one of his letters from prison. Never sit with your back to the door, sweetheart. Always keep your options open. Rebecca arrived exactly at 2 o'clock. She wore a light gray suit, cream blouse, the same silver watch she'd worn at the wedding. No excessive makeup, just enough to look professional. She walked with that same quiet confidence I'd noticed before. But when her eyes landed on me, I saw something new. Nervousness. I stood up awkwardly, nearly knocking over my chair in the process. Judge Carter. Sarah, she said simply, without smiling. She sat across from me, placing her black leather bag on the empty chair beside her. Thank you for coming. Like I had a choice. Her eyebrows arched slightly. You always have a choice. You could have ignored the call. Your assistant was very persuasive. Caroline is efficient, Rebecca admitted. She signaled to the waitress, a young girl with pink hair who seemed to recognize her. An Americano, please. No sugar. Vanilla latte, I ordered, when the waitress looked at me expectantly. Silence. Uncomfortable, heavy, loaded with the weight of everything unsaid between us. Rebecca folded her hands on the table, her fingers interlaced with almost military precision. I noticed she wore no rings. Not wedding, not any kind. I suppose you're wondering why I asked you to come, she finally began. The question crossed my mind, yes. We need to talk about what happened Saturday. I'm sorry, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure if it was true. I was drunk. It was stupid. An idiotic dare. I shouldn't have... Kissed me? Rebecca completed, her voice completely neutral. Yes. Another silence. The waitress returned with our coffees, placing them gently on the table before disappearing again. Rebecca wrapped her hands around the steaming cup, as if she needed the warmth. I didn't come here for apologies, Sarah. Then why? Because when I got home that night, I couldn't sleep, she admitted, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. I kept thinking about that moment, about your face, about the way you looked at me. My heart started beating faster. I don't know what you want me to say. The truth would be a good start, Rebecca suggested, finally raising her gaze to meet mine. Why did you do it? I could have lied, should have lied. But something in her eyes, that vulnerability carefully hidden behind layers of professionalism, made me want to be honest. Because I wanted to hurt you, I confessed. I wanted to make you feel uncomfortable, embarrass you like you embarrassed my family. Rebecca blinked, confused. Your family? David Mitchell, I said, my voice hardening with each syllable. Tax fraud case from 2001, 23 years in prison. Ring a bell? The color drained from her face like water down a drain. The coffee cup trembled in her hands before she carefully set it on the table. You're his daughter. His youngest daughter. I was 3 when you sentenced him. Now I'm 26. 23 years have passed, and my father is still locked up at Ridgeland. 23 years, Rebecca. 8 years more than the prosecutor asked for. Sarah, Do you know what it's like to grow up without a father? I continued, the rage I'd been holding for years finally finding an outlet. Do you know what it's like to watch your mother work 18 hours a day because the only family income disappeared overnight? Do you know what it's like to have kids at school call you daughter of the thief because the whole damn town read about the case in the papers? I did my job, Rebecca said, but her voice lacked conviction. Your job destroyed my life. Your father committed a crime, and you gave him a disproportionate sentence, I nearly shouted, drawing looks from nearby tables. I lowered my voice, trembling with contained fury. 8 extra years, Rebecca. 8. Why? She didn't answer. Her eyes, those honey-colored eyes that had haunted my dreams for 2 nights, filled with something that looked dangerously like pain. I can't discuss closed cases, she finally murmured. How convenient. Sarah, you know what's the most fucked up thing about all of this? I interrupted. That when I kissed you Saturday, when I felt your lips against mine, when I saw that look in your eyes, for 1 second, just 1 damn second, I forgot who you were. And that makes me the worst daughter in the world. Rebecca sat motionless. A tear, singular, solitary, rolled down her cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it quickly with the back of her hand, as if emotion were a weakness she couldn't afford. There are things you don't know, she finally said, her voice broken. About that case. About your father. About me. Then tell me. I can't. Why not? Because if I do, everything you thought you knew about that night in court will crumble. And I'm not sure you're ready for that. I leaned forward, my hands clenching into fists on the table. Try me. Rebecca studied me for a long moment. I could see the conflict playing on her face. Duty versus desire, professionalism versus humanity. Finally, she sighed, defeated. Did your father ever tell you about a man named James Santoro? The name hit me like a punch. James Santoro, my father's business partner, the man who testified against him in court, providing the key evidence that secured his conviction. The man who then disappeared, moving to New York according to rumors, enjoying his freedom while my father rotted in a cell. What about him? I asked cautiously. Santoro was the real architect of the fraud, Rebecca revealed, her voice barely audible. Your father was the scapegoat, but there wasn't enough evidence to prove it at the time. The prosecutor had a solid case against David, But Santoro had covered his tracks too well. My world started to tilt. Are you saying my father was innocent? I'm saying the truth was more complicated than the court records showed, Rebecca corrected. Your father participated in the fraud, that's undeniable. He signed documents. He moved money. But he did it under pressure and manipulation from Santoro, who was his superior and threatened to ruin his career if he didn't cooperate. Then why 23 years, if you knew this? Because Santoro made a deal with the prosecution, Rebecca explained, her expression twisted into something that looked like self-loathing. He'd testify against David in exchange for immunity. The prosecutor accepted. I couldn't overturn that agreement without concrete evidence of the manipulation. And there wasn't any. Not legally admissible, at least. But you said you knew. I suspected, she corrected. I had my private investigation. Unofficial conversations with accountants who'd worked with Santoro. Patterns of behavior. But none of that was evidence I could present in court without violating legal protocols and risking the entire case. So why didn't you just give my father the 15 years the prosecutor asked for? Rebecca took a sip of her coffee, probably just to have something to do with her trembling hands. Because if I gave him less time than he deserved for his actual participation in the fraud, Santoro could have argued selective prosecution and his immunity deal would have fallen apart. And we needed that testimony to secure any conviction against David. It was an impossible bet, so you sacrificed my father. Yes, Rebecca admitted, and the brutal honesty of that word left me breathless. And I've lived with that decision every day since. Because sometimes the justice system forces you to choose between bad and worse, and neither option lets you sleep at night. We sat in silence. The coffee shop buzzed around us with normal life, students laughing, couples chatting, the coffee machine hissing. But our table existed in a bubble of shared pain. Why are you telling me this now? I finally asked. Because when you kissed me Saturday, when I saw who you were, when I looked up your name and discovered the connection. Rebecca paused, her eyes searching mine with an intensity that burned. Because I owe you the truth, even if that truth doesn't change anything. Even if your father stays in prison and I'm still the woman who put him there. You could do something about it, I suggested, desperation filtering into my voice. Reopen the case. Investigate Santoro. There are ways. It's been 23 years, Sarah. Statutes of limitations, lost testimonies. Santoro died in a car accident in 2010. The evidence we'd need to overturn the conviction simply no longer exists. So my father will spend the rest of his life in prison for a crime he partially didn't commit. Unless he gets parole, Rebecca added softly. Which, according to my notes, he'll be eligible for next year for good behavior. 22 years too late. Yes. I wanted to hate her. I should hate her. This woman had just confessed she'd sacrificed my father for legal convenience, that she'd chosen to protect a deal with a criminal rather than defend a manipulated man. But when I looked into her eyes, when I saw the weight of 23 years of guilt carved into every line of her face, I found something unexpected. Understanding. Because Rebecca Carter wasn't the monster I'd built in my mind for decades. She was just a person trapped in an imperfect system, making impossible decisions that would haunt her for the rest of her life. You still haven't answered my original question, I said, after a long silence. Which one? Why you're here? Why you called me? You didn't come just to tell me the truth about my father's case. You could have sent a letter, an email, but you came personally. Rebecca lowered her gaze to her coffee, now cold and untouched. Because when you kissed me, she admitted, her voice so low I had to lean in to hear, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. And when I discovered who you were, I should have walked away. Should have forgotten that moment and moved on with my life. but I couldn't. And that makes me as guilty as you of whatever this is. My heart accelerated. What is this, Rebecca? She finally raised her gaze, and in her eyes I saw the same conflict that had been tearing me apart inside since Saturday. Desire mixed with guilt. Attraction fighting against loyalty. The tempting possibility of something forbidden hanging between us like poisoned fruit. I don't know, she whispered, but I can't ignore it either. Subscribe now. YouTube prioritizes subscribers, and those who aren't subscribed miss future stories. The waitress passed by, collecting plates from other tables. Charleston traffic noise filtered through the windows. The world kept spinning, oblivious to the fact that mine had completely stopped. This is insane, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Completely, Rebecca agreed. My family would disown me if they knew I was here with you. My career would end if anyone discovered I was... She paused, searching for the right word. Involved with the daughter of someone I sentenced. Then we should walk away. Now, before this gets more complicated. We should, Rebecca agreed. Neither of us moved. Rebecca's phone vibrated on the table. She looked at the screen and sighed. I have a hearing in 40 minutes. I need to go. Of course. She stood, collecting her bag. I also stood awkwardly, not knowing what to do with my hands, my body, my entire life that had been turned upside down in the course of a coffee conversation. Sarah, Rebecca said when she was about to walk away. Can I see you again? The question hung in the air between us, loaded with all the implications neither of us wanted to name. I don't know. That's okay, Rebecca nodded, but I saw disappointment briefly cross her face. It's your decision. It will always be your decision. She handed me a business card. White, simple, with her name engraved in black letters and a cell phone number handwritten on the back. In case you change your mind. I took the card. Our fingers brushed for a second, and that electricity, that damn electricity I'd felt at the wedding, ran through my skin again. Goodbye, Sarah. Goodbye, Rebecca. I watched her walk away, moving with that quiet confidence I now recognized as armor. When the coffee shop door closed behind her, I looked at the card in my hand. Rebecca Carter, District Court Judge, and on the back, written in blue ink, 843 Kicks. I put the card in my pocket. I left the coffee shop. The sky had finally decided to fulfill its promise of rain, with fat drops beginning to fall on Charleston streets. I walked in the rain, not caring about getting wet, thinking about impossible decisions, and how fate has a twisted sense of humor. Because the woman who had destroyed my family, the woman I should hate with every fiber of my being, was also the woman whose lips I wanted to kiss again. And that truth terrified me more than any court sentence. I didn't call Rebecca for 2 weeks. The business card stayed in my denim jacket pocket, burning an imaginary hole I could feel every time I wore it. Jessica asked me 3 times what happened at that coffee meeting. I told her we talked, that Rebecca apologized for the trouble, that it was water under the bridge. I lied. I'm surprisingly good at lying when I need to. My mother finally agreed to talk to me the Thursday after the wedding. We went to the Charleston City Market, where we used to buy vegetables when I was a kid. We walked between stalls of tomatoes and peppers, pretending that selecting ripe avocados was more important than the conversation we needed to have. Your Aunt Helen doesn't want to see you at family gatherings, Mom said, squeezing a tomato with experienced fingers. She says you humiliated Emily on her special day. I know. Is that all you have to say? I know? What do you want me to say, Mom? I'm sorry. I already apologized. To everyone except me, Mom accused, finally looking at me. She was 52 but looked 60. Work at the textile factory had hunched her shoulders, carved deep wrinkles around her eyes, turned her hair completely gray before 40. All thanks to Rebecca Carter. All thanks to the woman whose lips I remembered every night before sleeping. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said. And I meant it. Not for kissing Rebecca, but for the pain I caused her. I was drunk. It was stupid. It was cruel, Mom corrected. Do you know how I felt watching my daughter kiss that woman? The woman who sentenced Dad, I know. Not just that. Mom lowered her voice, looking around to make sure nearby vendors weren't listening. That woman took everything from us, Sarah. Your education, the house, your future with Michael. Everything. My education you paid for with your work, I reminded gently. And we lost the house because of Dad's debts, not because of the sentence. The debts existed because your father couldn't keep working, because she locked him up. There was no point arguing. For my mother, Rebecca Carter was the devil incarnate. There was no room for nuances, for explanations about complicated legal systems or impossible decisions. There was only one simple truth. Rebecca had signed the paper that destroyed our family. It won't happen again, I promised. It better not, Mom warned, returning to the tomatoes. Because next time, I won't want to see you either. We bought 3 pounds of tomatoes, a bunch of cilantro, and half a pound of onions. We talked about the weather, about Michael's construction work, about anything except what mattered. When we said goodbye at the market entrance, Mom's hug was brief, obligatory. I love you, sweetheart, but I can't understand this. I know, Mom. Neither can I. The call came on a Tuesday night, 2 days after my conversation with Mom. I was lying in bed, scrolling through online job offers, hoping to find something that paid better than my sporadic graphic design freelance work. Unknown number. Hello? Sarah? Rebecca's voice sounded tense, almost desperate. I know you said you needed time, but I need to see you. My heart instantly accelerated. Rebecca, please, it's not about us. It's about your father. I found something. The world stopped. What did you find? I can't tell you over the phone. Can you meet me? There's a park near my apartment, Waterfront Park. Do you know the place? Yes. In 30 minutes? I looked at the clock. It was 9:47 p.m. Meeting Rebecca in a park at 10:15 at night was probably the worst idea I'd had since kissing her at a wedding. I'll be there. Waterfront Park was nearly empty when I arrived. A couple of teenagers were smoking on a distant bench. An elderly woman was walking a small dog, and Rebecca waited under a magnolia tree with a manila folder in her hands. She wore jeans, the first time I'd seen her in anything but formal clothes, a gray hoodie, and sneakers. Her hair was loose, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. She looked younger like this, more accessible, more like someone who could be part of my life instead of the untouchable judge I'd imagined for years. Thank you for coming, she said when I approached. You said it was about my father. It is, Rebecca nodded, extending the folder. I spent the last 2 weeks going through old files, calling contacts, looking for something, anything that could help. I took the folder. Inside were copies of documents I didn't recognize, printed emails, bank statements, signed declarations. What is this? Evidence that James Santoro not only manipulated your father, but continued defrauding the government after David was sentenced, Rebecca explained. Her voice rushed with urgency. He used his immunity as a shield, thinking no one would review his activities while your father served his sentence. But you said Santoro died in 2010? He died, but his bank accounts didn't disappear. And it turns out an accountant in New York has been investigating irregularities in transfers dating back to that time. When I mentioned Santoro's name, he sent me this. I read the documents with growing amazement. Money transfers to offshore accounts, false invoices, a complete fraud network that continued until months before Santoro's death. This proves Dad wasn't the mastermind, I said, my voice trembling. It proves Santoro was more corrupt than anyone imagined, Rebecca corrected. But Sarah, you need to understand something. This doesn't automatically free your father. He still participated in the original fraud. He signed documents. He moved money. But under coercion. You said, I know what I said, and it's true. But legally, coercion without documented evidence is hard to prove, especially 23 years later. Then why are you showing me this? I demanded, frustration flooding my voice. To give me false hope? To give you options, Rebecca responded firmly. This evidence might be enough to request a sentence review. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it's more than we had before. We can file a motion to reduce his time based on new evidence of systematic coercion. If we're lucky, if the judge is compassionate, your father could get out in months instead of waiting until next year. Tears burned my eyes before I could stop them. Months, not years. Months. Why are you doing this? I whispered. Rebecca stepped closer. The space between us reduced until I could smell her perfume. Different now, something fresher, with citrus notes instead of flowers. Because I've been living with guilt for 23 years, she admitted. And because when I look at you, I see all the pain I caused. And because I want to be better than the person I was in that courtroom. Rebecca. And because I can't stop thinking about you, she added, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. About that kiss. About your eyes when you discovered who I was. About the possibility that maybe, just maybe, we can find something good in the middle of all this mess. My breathing became shallow. We were too close now, inches apart. I could see every detail of her face under the park's dim lamplight. The small wrinkles around her eyes, the scar on her eyebrow that I now knew came from a childhood bike accident, the mole on her neck that had obsessed me since the wedding. We shouldn't, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I know. My family. I understand. Your career. I care more about this, Rebecca interrupted, her hand rising to gently brush my cheek. I care more about you. The contact was like electricity, like standing under a lightning storm, like jumping off a cliff not knowing if there was water below. This is insane, I repeated, but my body was leaning toward her. The best kind of insane, Rebecca murmured. And then I kissed her. Or she kissed me. I'm not sure who closed the distance first. I only know our lips met in a kiss that had nothing to do with revenge or drunken dares. This was hunger. Desperation. Months, no, years of loneliness finding refuge in another equally broken person. Her hands tangled in my hair. Mine found her waist, pulling her closer. The folder fell to the ground, scattering documents that could save my father. But in that moment, nothing mattered except the way Rebecca trembled against me, the way she sighed my name against my lips, the way the entire world reduced to this point of contact. When we finally separated, we were both breathless. Rebecca rested her forehead against mine, her eyes closed, her hands still clutching my jacket as if letting go meant getting lost. God, Sarah, she whispered. What are you doing to me? The same thing you're doing to me. We stayed like that, embraced under the magnolia tree, ignoring the world that continued moving around us. The elderly woman with the dog had disappeared, the teenagers too. Only us, and the impossible decisions we'd have to face remained. "We need to talk about this," I finally said. "I know. Establish rules, boundaries." "Definitely," Rebecca agreed, but she wasn't letting go. "My mother can't know." "No one can know," Rebecca added. "If this comes to light, if someone discovers I'm involved with the daughter of someone I sentenced, my career ends. They could accuse me of conflict of interest, unethical behavior. They could overturn not just your father's case, but every sentence I've issued in the last 20 years. Then maybe we should stop, now, before this goes further." Rebecca finally opened her eyes, looking at me with an intensity that burned to my bones. "Can you do that? Can you walk away and pretend this never happened?" "No," I admitted miserably. "I can't. Neither can I." We kissed again, softer this time, slower, like sealing a pact we both knew could destroy us. "So what do we do?" I asked when we finally separated. "We're careful," Rebecca responded. "Discreet. We meet only in private places. No unnecessary phone calls, no text messages that can be traced, and definitely no public appearances together." "Sounds like an affair," I observed. "It is what it is," Rebecca admitted, with a sadness in her voice that broke my heart. "I can't offer you more than this, Sarah. Not now. Maybe never. But you'll work on my father's case." "I'll work on your father's case," she promised. "As a judge, I have an obligation to ensure justice is served correctly. And if that means admitting I made a mistake 23 years ago, I'll do it. Even if it means exposing your own errors. Especially then." Rebecca picked up the folder from the ground, shaking dirt off the documents. "Your father deserves a second chance. We all deserve second chances. If any part of this story feels like your life, the hype button helps keep it from staying silent." "Thank you," I said, and the word felt inadequate for everything I wanted to express. "Don't thank me yet. This will be complicated. There will be hearings, appeals. Your father will need a good lawyer who can present this evidence convincingly. We can afford a public defender." "I know someone better," Rebecca said. "Maria Flores, appeals case specialist. I owe her some favors. I can ask her to take the case pro bono." "You can't do that. It would be..." "Conflict of interest?" Rebecca smiled sadly. "Technically, we're already in conflict of interest territory, Sarah. Might as well make it worth it." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This woman, this complicated, guilty, beautiful woman, was risking everything to help my father. And she was doing it not out of duty or justice, but for me. "Rebecca, don't say it," she interrupted gently. "Not yet. It's too soon for big words." "When won't it be too soon?" "When your father is free. When this is no longer a secret. When we can be together without it meaning destroying everything we've built. And if that day never comes..." Rebecca kissed my forehead, a gesture so tender it made me want to cry. "Then at least we'll have had this stolen moment under the magnolias, where two broken women found something that looks dangerously like hope." We stayed in the park until past midnight, talking about legal plans and appeal strategies, but also about simpler things. Her childhood in Atlanta, my love for architecture I could never professionally pursue, her favorite coffee, my favorite band. I learned Rebecca had been married once, 15 years ago, to a lawyer named Michael, who left her when she wouldn't give up her career to have children. I learned her first girlfriend was in college, a literature student named Sophia, who broke her heart when she moved to Spain. And I told her about my first love, a girl in high school named Carmen, who kissed me behind the bleachers during a football game, and then pretended it never happened because she was afraid her family would disown her. I told her about the loneliness of growing up different in a conservative family, about the relief of finally moving into my own apartment, where I could be who I was without shame. When we finally said goodbye, with the promise to meet in 3 days to discuss more case details, I realized something terrifying. This was no longer just physical attraction. It was no longer just rebellion against family expectations. This was becoming something real, something that could love me, something that could destroy me. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure which of those options was more terrifying. Attorney Maria Flores turned out to be a 48-year-old woman with completely white hair, pulled back in a tight bun, and a reputation that made prosecutors throughout South Carolina tremble. When she arrived at Ridgeland Correctional Institution on a Friday morning to meet my father for the first time, I sat in the waiting room with sweaty palms and my stomach in knots. I hadn't seen my father in person in 2 years. Visits had become harder over time. Not from lack of love, but because every time I saw him aging behind those gray walls, something inside me broke a little more. He was 65 now, completely white hair, hunched shoulders, trembling hands they'd diagnosed as early Parkinson's, but that Mom and I knew was just the result of years of stress. Sarah Mitchell? Maria's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She'd emerged from the meeting room with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Your father is ready to see you." I stood on legs that barely supported me. Maria stopped me with a hand on my arm. "He's a good man," she said softly, "and he's lucky to have you. Not many daughters would fight this hard." "I'm not fighting alone," I responded, thinking of Rebecca, of the hours she'd spent compiling evidence, of the favors she'd called in. "I know." Maria studied me with eyes that seemed to see too much. "Rebecca mentioned you were special to her." My heart stopped. "What exactly did she tell you?" "Nothing specific. But I've known Rebecca Carter for 15 years. I've never seen her so committed to overturning one of her own sentences. That tells me everything I need to know." I didn't know what to say to that, so I simply nodded and entered the meeting room. My father sat in a plastic chair, his hands cuffed in front of him. Standard protocol, though it was the most ridiculous thing in the world. David Mitchell wasn't dangerous. He was a broken man who'd paid for crimes he'd partially not committed. "Sweetheart," his voice cracked when he saw me. I rushed over, hugging him as tightly as the cuffs allowed. "I didn't know you were coming today." Surprise?" I tried to sound cheerful, but tears were already running down my cheeks. "Maria says there's good news. She says you might get out." Dad looked at me with moist eyes. That Judge Carter found new evidence." The name fell between us like a bomb. My father hadn't spoken that name in my presence in 23 years. "Yes," I confirmed, wiping tears with the back of my hand. "She found proof that Santoro manipulated you, that the sentence was unjust." "Why?" Dad asked, confused. "Why would she do that? After all this time?" "Because I kissed her. Because there's something between us that neither of us can explain. Because she feels guilty and is trying to repair the damage she caused. Because it's the right thing to do," I said instead. Dad didn't look convinced, but didn't press. We spent the next hour talking about the case, about the hearings that would come, about the real possibility he could be home for Christmas. Maria had explained the process wouldn't be quick. Nothing in the American legal system was. But with the evidence Rebecca had compiled, there was a genuine chance. When I finally said goodbye, with the promise to return next week, Dad stopped me at the door. "Sarah, that Judge Carter, if you see her, tell her I'm grateful. I don't know why she's doing this, but I'm grateful." I'll tell her, Dad. Lie. I couldn't tell Rebecca my father was grateful without revealing I'd been here, that I was involved beyond my official role. Our secret was becoming increasingly complicated to maintain. That night, Rebecca came to my apartment for the first time. She'd sent a simple text. Need to see you. Can I come over? I spent 20 frantic minutes cleaning, hiding dirty clothes, lighting a scented candle Jessica had given me for Christmas that I'd never used. When she knocked at 8:34 p.m., my heart was pounding so loud I was sure the neighbors could hear it. Rebecca entered quickly, looking over her shoulder before closing the door. She wore dark jeans and a black leather jacket, with her hair hidden under a baseball cap. She looked like a teenager sneaking around, not a respected 42-year-old judge. Nobody saw me, she said immediately. I parked 3 blocks away. Paranoid much? Careful, she corrected, removing the cap. Her hair fell in messy waves. If someone sees me entering the apartment of David Mitchell's daughter, the questions would be uncomfortable. Welcome to my humble home, I said, extending my arms to encompass the small space. It's not the courthouse, but it has its charm. Rebecca smiled, a real smile, not the professional one she used in public, and looked around. The apartment was small, a combined living dining room, a closet-sized kitchen, a bedroom barely big enough for a double bed and a closet. The walls were decorated with my sketches of buildings that would never be built, architectural designs I'd created during my college years, when I still believed I could have a real career. It's perfect, Rebecca finally said, her eyes settling on a drawing of a suspension bridge I'd designed as a final project. Did you do this? In another life. When I thought I'd be an architect. You still can be. At 26, unemployed, with no connections, the architecture world in America is for people with the right last names and old money. I have neither of those things. Rebecca approached, her fingers gently brushing the hanging drawing. You have talent. That counts for something. In a perfect world, maybe. But we live in America. Fair, Rebecca admitted. She turned to me, and in her eyes I saw a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. I saw Maria today. She said you went to Ridgeland. I had to see my father. How is he? Hopeful, scared. He doesn't understand why you're helping. And you? Do you understand? I took a step toward her, closing the distance between us. I think I do. I think you're trying to repair something that broke a long time ago. I think you feel guilty. And I think you also feel something for me. I feel many things for you, Rebecca admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. Too many things. Things I shouldn't feel. Like what? Instead of answering, Rebecca closed the final space between us and kissed me. It wasn't the desperate kiss from the park or the impulsive one from the wedding. This was slow, deliberate, full of promises neither of us dared speak aloud. Her hands found my waist, pulling me closer, mine tangled in her hair, holding her head as if it were something precious that could break. When we finally separated, we were both breathing hard. That, Rebecca said. I feel that. This is going to get complicated, I warned. It's already complicated. It could get worse. I know. My family, I understand. Your career. Sarah, Rebecca put a finger on my lips, silencing me. I've spent 42 years always doing the right thing, the professional thing, the expected thing. And I'm tired. I'm tired of sleeping alone. I'm tired of pretending I don't need anyone. I'm tired of living with guilt eating me from the inside. And I'm what? Your escape from guilt? You're my second chance, Rebecca corrected. And maybe I'm yours. Two broken women trying to find something whole in the mess we made. I couldn't argue with that logic. Besides, I didn't want to. For the first time in years, I felt something more than anger or resentment. I felt hope. I felt possibility. We moved to the couch, where we sat side by side, our bodies pressed together in the narrow space. Rebecca rested her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, holding this woman who'd destroyed my family and who was now trying to repair it. "Tell me something," Rebecca requested after a long silence. "Something nobody else knows." "Like what?" "Anything. I want to know you. The real Sarah, not the angry daughter of David Mitchell." I thought for a moment. "When I was 12, I stole a book from the public library," I confessed. "The Count of Monte Cristo." It was about a man unjustly imprisoned who spent years planning his revenge. Appropriate. I thought if I read enough revenge stories, I'd find the perfect way to make the judge who ruined my life pay, I continued. But the book ended with the protagonist forgiving his enemies. That made me so furious I burned it in our backyard. Rebecca laughed softly. "And now, do you still want revenge?" "Now I don't know what I want," I admitted. "Except this, except being here with you, even though it's completely insane." "Insane is my specialty lately," Rebecca murmured. Her fingers found mine, interlacing. "Your turn. Ask me something." "Why did you never remarry?" "After Michael." "Because I realized I didn't want to put my heart in someone's hands again, who didn't understand what it means to be a judge. The hours, the impossible decisions, the constant guilt." "And Sophia? Your college girlfriend?" Rebecca sighed. "Sophia was my first real love. She taught me it was possible to love a woman without shame. But when she left for Spain, I realized I couldn't follow her. My career was here. My life was here. And she couldn't stay for me." "Sounds familiar." "How so?" "Carmen, the high school girl I mentioned. She couldn't stay for me either. Her family was too conservative. She was too scared. So she pretended nothing ever happened between us." "Did you love her?" "I thought I did. Now I think I just love the idea of not being alone." Rebecca turned to look at me directly. "And now? Are you still afraid of being alone?" "Every day. But being here with you, it's the first time in years that loneliness doesn't feel like a death sentence. If this doesn't deserve a like, I don't know what does." We stayed on the couch until past midnight, talking about everything and nothing. Rebecca told me about her younger brother who lived in Atlanta and barely spoke to her because he disapproved of her lifestyle. I told her about Michael, my older brother who worked in construction and had been my protector throughout my childhood. We talked about favorite movies, food we hated, childhood memories that made us laugh. And for a few hours, we weren't the judge and the convict's daughter. We were just two women finding comfort in the chaos. When Rebecca finally left, exiting cautiously after checking there was no one in the hallway, she kissed my cheek at the door. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For letting me just be Rebecca, without the title, without the weight. You can be just Rebecca here whenever you want." "That's dangerous," she warned, but she was smiling. "The best kind of dangerous." I watched her walk away down the hallway, her baseball cap back on, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself invisible. And I realized something terrifying. I could no longer imagine my life without her. The following weeks became a carefully choreographed dance of secret meetings and necessary lies. Rebecca came to my apartment 2 or 3 times a week, always late at night, always with extreme precautions. I never went to her house. Too risky, too visible. Her building had security and cameras that could raise uncomfortable questions. I lied to my mother about where I spent my nights. I lied to Jessica about why I was always busy. I lied to myself about how deep I was falling. Because this was no longer just attraction. It was no longer just rebellion or seeking revenge. This was love. Raw and complicated and completely inappropriate, growing like poisonous ivy that couldn't be pulled without destroying everything around it. My father's case moved slowly. Maria had filed the motion for sentence review, citing new evidence of systematic coercion by James Santoro. The prosecution opposed, arguing the evidence was circumstantial and that David Mitchell had had 23 years to present any claims of manipulation. "It's a tough fight," Maria admitted on a phone call in mid-November. "But not impossible. We have a hearing scheduled for early December. If the judge is compassionate, if we present the case correctly, your father could be home for Christmas." Christmas, a word that had lost its magic long ago. But now, with the possibility of having Dad back, with Rebecca appearing in my life like a gift wrapped in complications, the word was starting to mean something again. "Sarah?" Maria's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "There's something else you need to know." "What?" "The judge who'll preside over the review hearing is Rebecca Carter." The world stopped. "What? No, it can't be her. It's conflict of interest. She originally sentenced my father, precisely why she was assigned," Maria explained. "In sentence review cases, it's standard protocol for the original judge to preside to guarantee continuity and complete understanding of the case. But I know, it's unusual given the circumstances. But from a purely legal perspective, it makes sense. Rebecca knows every detail of the original case. She's in the best position to evaluate whether the new evidence justifies a review. Maria, there's something you should know about Rebecca and me." Silence on the other end of the line. Long, heavy, full of unspoken implications. "Sarah," Maria finally said, her voice carefully neutral. "As your attorney, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Is there anything between you and Judge Carter that could compromise this case?" "Yes," I admitted miserably. "We're involved." "Shit. I know." "No, I don't think you do." Maria sounded more stressed than I'd ever heard her. "If this comes to light, if someone discovers the judge reviewing your father's case is also romantically involved with you, the entire case collapses. Not only that, Rebecca could be removed from the bench, investigated for unethical conduct. Her career would end. Nobody knows. Only you now. And you plan to keep it that way? Even during the hearing? Even when Rebecca has to sit on that bench and make decisions that directly affect your family life?" "I don't know. We haven't talked about it." "Well, you better," Maria warned. "And fast. The hearing is in 3 weeks. If you're going to continue with this, you need to be more careful than any reasonable human could be. One single mistake, one single witness who sees you together and everything collapses." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. I called Rebecca immediately. "We have a problem." Rebecca arrived at my apartment 20 minutes after my call, without her baseball cap this time, with loose hair and a genuine expression of concern on her face. "What happened?" she asked as soon as she crossed the door. "The hearing. You're going to preside over my father's review hearing." Rebecca closed her eyes, as if the weight of those words were a physical blow. "I already knew." "You knew? And you didn't think to tell me?" "I just got the official assignment this morning. I was going to tell you tonight." "And? What's the plan? Are you going to sit there and pretend we're not—" I gestured vaguely between us. "Whatever this is." "Exactly that," Rebecca responded firmly. I'm going to sit on that bench and do my job as a judge. I'm going to evaluate the evidence objectively. I'm going to completely ignore the fact that I'm falling in love with the daughter of the man whose fate I'm deciding. The words fell between us like a bomb. Falling in love. She'd said falling in love. Rebecca. No, she interrupted, raising a hand. Let me finish. I've thought about this for weeks. Since that first meeting at the Daily Grind, I knew we'd eventually reach this point. And the truth is, there's no perfect answer. If I recuse myself from the case, I'll raise suspicions. People will wonder why. They'll investigate. And eventually they'll discover this. And if you don't recuse yourself, then I have to be the most impartial judge I've ever been in my life. I have to evaluate your father's case without my feelings for you influencing my decision in any way. And you have to trust I'll do that. Can you? Rebecca looked directly into my eyes. Yes, because I owe that to your father. I owe him a fair evaluation, regardless of what I feel for his daughter. And because if I give David Mitchell any special treatment because of my relationship with you, then all these years of trying to do the right thing mean nothing. And if the evidence isn't enough, if you decide my father stays in prison, then your father stays in prison. And you'll have to decide if you can be with the woman who denied him his freedom a second time. The brutal honesty of her words hit me like a punch, but I also respected them. Rebecca wasn't promising a happy ending. She wasn't compromising her ethics for love. She was being the judge she'd always been. Imperfect, but honest. I don't know if I can live with that, I admitted. I know, Rebecca approached, taking my face in her hands. And I wouldn't blame you if you decided this is too much, that I'm too complicated, that the price of being with me is too high. I'm not saying that. Then what are you saying? That I'm scared, I confessed. I'm scared of loving you and losing you. I'm scared my father will stay in prison. I'm scared this will explode in our faces and we'll both end up destroyed. I'm scared too, Rebecca admitted. But what scares me most is the alternative. Walking away from you now. Pretending this never happened. Going back to my life of loneliness and guilt. We kissed, desperately, as if physical contact could somehow solve all the problems surrounding us. My hands tangled in her hair. Hers found my waist, pulling me so close there was no space between us. When we finally separated, we both had tears in our eyes. 3 weeks, Rebecca said. In 3 weeks we'll know if your father goes free, and then we can decide what we are to each other. And meanwhile? Meanwhile, we're careful. No more night visits until after the hearing. No more unnecessary phone calls. We keep as distant as possible so no one suspects. I'm going to miss you, I said, though it sounded pathetic. I'll miss you too, but it's only temporary. After the hearing, regardless of the outcome, we can, I don't know, be more open, figure out how this works in the real world. And if it doesn't work, then at least we tried. Rebecca kissed my forehead. More than I've tried with anyone else in my life. The 3 weeks that followed were torture. Without Rebecca showing up at my door at midnight, my apartment felt empty. Jessica noticed my bad mood and assumed it was stress about Dad's hearing. She wasn't completely wrong, but not completely right either. My mother was ecstatic about the review hearing news, though confused about how it had happened. It's a miracle, she declared when I visited her a week before the scheduled date. After all these years, someone finally listens. Someone finally sees your father wasn't the real criminal. I didn't tell her that someone was Rebecca Carter. I didn't tell her the same woman who'd sent Dad to prison was now trying to free him. And I definitely didn't tell her that woman and I were, what? In love? Was that the right word for something so complicated? Michael was more skeptical. "This sounds too good to be true," he said when we met for coffee 3 days before the hearing. "What if it's just to give Dad false hope?" Attorney Flores wouldn't do that. She believes we have a real chance. And you? What do you believe? I believed Rebecca Carter was the most complicated person I'd ever met. I believed I was falling in love with her despite all the reasons I shouldn't. I believed my life had turned into a soap opera, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I believe we have hope," I said instead. "And that's more than we've had in 23 years. The night before the hearing, I broke my own promise and called Rebecca. "Hi." Her voice sounded tired when she answered. "Hi. I know we said we wouldn't call, but I needed to hear your voice." "I needed yours too," she admitted. "I haven't slept well since we last saw each other." "Nervous about tomorrow?" "Terrified. I've presided over hundreds of hearings, thousands. But this is different. Because my father's involved." "Because you're involved," Rebecca corrected. "And because if I make a mistake, if I let my feelings cloud my judgment in any way, I destroy not only your trust in me, but also the integrity of the entire system." "No pressure." Rebecca laughed softly. "Exactly. Sarah, you need to understand something. Tomorrow when I enter that courtroom, I can't be the woman who comes to your apartment at midnight. I can't be the person who kisses you and holds you. I have to be Judge Carter, impartial, professional, distant." "I understand. Do you really?" "No," I admitted, "but I'm going to try." We stayed silent for a moment, just the sound of our shared breathing through the phone connection. "Rebecca?" "Yes?" "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that you mean something to me. Something big. Even if it doesn't work out. Even if everything falls apart. You mean something to me too, Sarah. More than I should admit the night before deciding your father's fate. Then I guess we'll see each other tomorrow. In court. As strangers." "As strangers," I agreed, though the word hurt to say. We hung up, and I spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if tomorrow would be the day everything changed for the better, or the day everything collapsed completely. Courtroom number 4 of the Charleston County Courthouse was cold when we entered at 9 a.m. on December 4th. My mother was to my right, shaking despite the thick sweater she wore. Michael to my left, his protective arm around my shoulders. Attorney Maria Flores was at the defense table, organizing documents with precise, efficient movements. The prosecution table was occupied by a man about 50 years old named Robert Montgomery, who, according to Maria, had a reputation for being ruthless. He'd reviewed the case and argued the new evidence was insufficient to justify a sentence review. My father was brought in at 9:15, handcuffed and escorted by 2 guards. He looked older than I remembered, more fragile. When he saw me in the gallery, he tried to smile, but the effort seemed to exhaust him. And then, at 9:30 exactly, the side doors opened and Rebecca Carter entered. My heart stopped. She wore her black judicial robe, with hair pulled back in a tight bun, and those glasses she only wore when reading long documents. She walked to the bench with that quiet confidence I'd come to know so well, without looking at me even once. When she sat down, she struck her gavel twice. "Good morning. This is the sentence review hearing in the case of the State of South Carolina versus David Mitchell, case number 234-2001. I am present Judge Rebecca Carter, who originally presided over this case. Also present, Defense Attorney Maria Flores, Prosecutor Robert Montgomery, and Defendant David Mitchell." Her voice was completely professional. There was no emotion, no warmth. It was the voice of a judge who'd pronounced sentences on hundreds of people. "Attorney Flores, I understand you've presented new evidence suggesting Mr. Mitchell was a victim of systematic coercion by his business partner, James Santoro, now deceased. Is that correct?" Yes, Your Honor. Maria stood. The evidence clearly shows a pattern of manipulation that wasn't presented during the original trial. My client was effectively a scapegoat for larger crimes committed by Mr. Santoro. Prosecutor Montgomery, I understand you oppose this review. Correct, Your Honor. The prosecutor stood. The evidence presented is circumstantial and doesn't change the basic facts of the case. Mr. Mitchell signed fraudulent documents. He moved money illegally. The new evidence doesn't exonerate these actions. Rebecca nodded, taking notes. We'll proceed with evidence presentation. Attorney Flores, you may begin. The next 2 hours were a parade of documents, testimonies, and legal arguments I barely followed. My attention was completely fixed on Rebecca, searching for any sign she recognized my presence. But there was nothing. Her eyes passed over the gallery without stopping. Her expression remained neutral, as she listened to Maria explain how Santoro had threatened my father with ruining his career if he didn't cooperate. When it was the prosecutor's turn, Montgomery was relentless. Your Honor, Mr. Mitchell has had 23 years to present coercion claims, 23 years to seek legal help, 23 years to tell his version of the story. Why now? Why when he's less than a year from being eligible for parole? Because evidence of Mr. Santoro's continued activities was only recently discovered, Maria responded. My client had no way to prove systematic manipulation without this information. Or maybe your client is simply looking for an easy way out. Prosecutor Montgomery. Rebecca's voice cut through the air like a knife. Keep your comments professional. My apologies, Your Honor. The rest of the hearing passed in a blur. Testimonies from accountants who'd worked with Santoro, bank statements, emails showing a pattern of coercive behavior. My father was called to testify, his voice trembling as he explained how Santoro had threatened to destroy not just his career, but also his family if he didn't cooperate. Rebecca listened to everything without visible emotion. She took notes. She asked clarifying questions. But never, not once, did she look at me. At 3:30 p.m., after 6 hours of testimony, Rebecca struck her gavel. Thank you to both parties for your presentations. I will take this information under consideration and issue my decision within the next 48 hours. Hearing adjourned. And just like that, it was over. Rebecca stood, collected her documents, and exited through the side doors without looking back. My father was escorted back to his transport. The courtroom began to empty. That went well, Maria said, approaching us. Judge Carter seemed genuinely interested in the evidence. There's hope. When will we know? Mom asked, her voice broken with emotion. Within 2 days, maybe sooner. Depends on how long it takes the judge to review all the materials and write her opinion. 2 days, 48 hours of waiting to know if my father would be free. If Rebecca had been able to separate her feelings for me from her judicial duty. If all this chaos would have a happy ending. We left the courthouse under a gray sky threatening rain. Mom and Michael talked animatedly about positive signs they'd noticed, but I barely listened. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from a number I recognized as Rebecca's, though it appeared as unknown contact. I did the best I could. Now we can only wait. I love you. The last 2 words hit me like lightning. I love you. She'd said it. Or at least, she'd written it. After 6 hours of pretending I didn't exist, of maintaining that perfect professional mask, she'd broken her own protocol to send me those 2 words. I immediately deleted the message, security protocol we'd agreed on, but the words remained engraved in my memory. I love you. And as I walked to the parking lot with my family, leaving behind the courthouse where Rebecca Carter was deciding my father's fate, I realized something terrifying. I loved her too. Despite everything. Despite the history. despite the chaos and complications and the fact that our love could destroy everything we'd both built. I loved her, and that truth was more terrifying than any court sentence. 48 hours turned into an eternity. Friday passed without news. Saturday dawned gray and silent. My phone became a torture device. I checked it every 5 minutes, waiting for a call from Maria, a message from Rebecca, any sign the universe had decided our fate. Jessica showed up at my apartment Saturday afternoon with a bottle of tequila and determination to distract me. "You're going to go crazy if you keep this up," she declared, pouring 2 generous glasses. "Look at yourself. You look like a zombie." "I feel like a zombie." "Then drink. Zombies don't worry about anything." We drank in silence for a moment. Jessica knew me well enough to know when to push and when to just be present. "Want to talk about it?" she finally asked. "There's nothing to talk about. We wait. That's all we can do." "I'm not talking about your dad's case," Jessica clarified, looking at me with those eyes that always seemed to see too much. "I'm talking about whatever's going on with you, because you've been different these last few weeks. More, I don't know, more alive and more miserable at the same time. It's complicated. Everything in your life is complicated, Sarah. But you usually tell me your complications." I took a long gulp of tequila, feeling it burn my throat. "If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. Try me." For a moment, I considered telling her everything. About Rebecca, about the impossible romance, about how I'd fallen in love with the woman who destroyed my family. But the words stuck in my throat. Because admitting it out loud would make it real. And if it was real, then eventually it would crumble, and I wasn't sure I could survive that fall. "I met someone," I finally said. Jessica's eyes lit up. "Really? Who? When? Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it's complicated." "You already said that. Give me details. Is it a woman?" "Obviously it's a woman. What's her name? Where did you meet?" "We met at the wedding. And yes, she's a woman. And I can't tell you more than that." "Why not?" "Because if I tell you, you'd feel obligated to lie to my family. And it's not fair to put you in that position." Jessica studied me for a long moment. "Okay, I can respect that. But Sarah, whoever she is, I hope she makes you happy. Because you deserve to be happy. After all these years of carrying your family's guilt, of sacrificing yourself for everyone, you deserve something good." Her words made me want to cry. Because she was right. For 23 years, I'd defined my life by my father's absence, by my mother's pain, by the injustice done to us. And now, for the first time, I'd found something that was mine. Someone who existed outside the family trauma, but that someone was so intertwined with the trauma I couldn't separate them. Thanks, Jess. You're welcome. Now take another shot and tell me about this mysterious person without telling me who they are. I want juicy details. We spent the rest of the afternoon drinking tequila and talking in careful circles. I told her about the first time I kissed Rebecca, without naming her, and how I felt electricity. I told her about the midnight conversations, about how someone could be completely wrong for you on paper, but feel perfectly right in person. Jessica listened with that mix of fascination and concern only best friends can achieve. "Sounds intense," she said when I finished. "And complicated. Very complicated." "It is. Is it worth it?" The question hit me like a punch. Was it worth it? All the secrecy, the lies, the potential to destroy not just my relationship with my family, but also Rebecca's career. Was it worth it for the possibility of love? Yes, I answered without hesitation. It's completely worth it. The call came Sunday at 11:47 a.m. I was in the shower, trying to wash away yesterday's hangover, when I heard my phone ring. I jumped out of the water so fast I almost slipped, grabbing a towel as I ran to the bedroom. Maria Flores. Hello? My voice sounded desperate even to my own ears. Sarah, Judge Carter just issued her decision. My heart stopped. The world stopped. Everything reduced to that moment, to that voice on the other end of the line, to the words that were about to change everything. And your father is free. My legs stopped supporting me. I sat on the edge of the bed, still dripping water, with the towel barely covering my body. What? Judge Carter ruled the new evidence is sufficient to justify a significant sentence reduction. Considering time already served and the coercion circumstances, she's ordered David Mitchell's immediate release. I don't understand. Immediate? Immediate, Maria confirmed, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Your father can leave Ridgeland today. He just needs administrative processing, which will take a few hours. But Sarah, your father is coming home. Tears started falling before I could stop them. 23 years. 23 years of visits behind glass partitions. 23 years of missed birthdays and absent graduations and denied hugs. And now, just like that, it was over. Thank you, I managed to say between sobs. Thank you, Maria. Don't thank me. Thank whoever convinced Judge Carter to review this case so thoroughly. Because let me tell you, Sarah, that written opinion was one of the most passionately argued I've seen in my career. She didn't just reduce the sentence. She basically admitted the original sentence was a judicial error. My heart raced. What? In her written opinion, Judge Carter acknowledges the circumstances presented at the original trial didn't fully reflect the coercive nature of the relationship between your father and Santoro. She admits that if this evidence had been available in 2001, the sentence would have been significantly different. It's almost a public apology. Rebecca had risked everything. Not only had she freed my father, she'd publicly admitted she'd made a mistake 23 years ago. In the judicial world, where judges rarely admitted fallibility, this was monumental. When can I see him? Ridgeland will release him around 4 p.m. You can pick him up at the main entrance. And Sarah, congratulations. Your father is finally coming home. When I hung up, I just sat on my bed, still wet, still in shock. Then I called my mother. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Then she cried. Then she screamed again. Then she started planning. What she'd cook for dinner, which room she'd clean, what clothes she'd give Dad because his clothes from 23 years ago definitely wouldn't fit anymore. It's a miracle, she kept repeating. A true miracle. It wasn't a miracle. It was Rebecca Carter risking her reputation, admitting her mistakes, trying to repair the damage she'd caused. But I couldn't tell my mother that. So I just nodded and listened as she planned the biggest celebration our family had seen in decades. When I finally hung up, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. Wet hair falling in strands over my shoulders, red eyes from crying, towel barely covering my body, and a smile, genuine, unshadowed, that I hadn't seen on my face in years. My father was free, and Rebecca had done that for me. The parking lot at Ridgeland Correctional Institution was full when we arrived at 3:30 p.m. Mom, Michael, my Aunt Helen, who had miraculously decided to forgive me now that the news was good, 2 cousins I barely knew, and me. A complete family delegation waiting to bring David Mitchell back to the world. The prison doors opened at 4:17 p.m., and there he was, 22 years older, completely white hair, hunched shoulders, But his eyes, those brown eyes I remembered from my childhood, were the same. And when he saw us, when he saw his family waiting for him, something in his expression broke and repaired at the same time. Mom reached him first, running like a teenager, throwing herself into his arms with such force she almost knocked him down. Michael was next, tears rolling down his cheeks without shame. And then me. When Dad hugged me, when I felt his arms around me for the first time in 2 years, when I breathed the smell of institutional soap mixed with something that was simply him, I collapsed. My girl, he murmured against my hair. My little Sarah. I'm not little anymore, Dad. You'll always be my little girl. We stayed like that for what seemed like hours, but was probably just minutes. The whole family hugging, crying, laughing, existing in that perfect moment where past and future didn't matter. Only the present. In the car back home, Michael driving, Mom clutching Dad's hand as if letting go meant losing him again, Dad looked out the window with an expression of wonder. Everything has changed, he said softly. The streets, the buildings, everything. It's been 23 years, David, Mom said. The world doesn't stop. I know, but seeing it is different. When we arrived at the family home, a small 2-story building in West Ashley that Mom had managed to keep despite the debts, more family was waiting. Cousins, uncles, neighbors who'd known us forever. An impromptu celebration with barbecue, coleslaw, and sweet tea, with people hugging Dad and welcoming him like the prodigal son. I stayed on the periphery, watching. Happy for Dad, for Mom, for everyone. But also thinking about the woman who'd made this possible. The woman who was probably alone in her apartment, processing what she'd just done, wondering if she'd made the right decision. My phone vibrated. Text from unknown number. Is he home? Yes. Thank you isn't enough. I don't need thanks. I just need to know I did the right thing. You did. For the first time in 23 years, my father is free. There was a long pause. Then, can we see each other? Tonight. I know it's risky, but I need to see you. I looked around the celebration. My happy family, complete for the first time in decades. If I left now, I'd raise questions. But Rebecca had risked everything for this. The least I could do was give her an hour. Waterfront Park, 10 p.m. I'll be there. I escaped from the party at 9:45 p.m. with the excuse I had work the next morning and needed to rest. Mom protested. She wanted me to stay, to celebrate. But Dad winked at me. Let her go, Margaret. She's done enough for us. He had no idea how much. Waterfront Park was almost empty when I arrived. Just a few young couples walking hand in hand, a hot dog vendor pushing his cart, and Rebecca. She sat on the same bench where we'd kissed weeks ago, wearing jeans and a hoodie that almost hid her face. When I approached, she looked up, and I saw she'd been crying. Hey, I said softly, sitting beside her. Hey. You okay? Rebecca laughed without humor. I just publicly admitted I made a judicial error 23 years ago. My reputation is probably ruined. My colleagues are going to question every decision I've made. And the only thing I can think about is whether your father hugged you when he got out. He hugged me. Good. Rebecca wiped tears with the back of her hand. That's the only thing that matters. It's not the only thing that matters. I took her hand. You matter. What you just did. The risk you took. I had to do it, Rebecca interrupted. Not just for you, though I won't pretend you weren't part of the motivation, but also for me, because I've lived with that guilt for 23 years. And if I didn't remedy it now, I never could. And now? How do you feel? I feel terrified, she admitted, because now there's nothing keeping us apart. No pending case, no professional conflict of interest. It's just us. And I don't know if I can be what you need. What do you think I need? Someone without all this baggage. Someone who didn't destroy your family. Someone normal. Rebecca, look at me. I waited until her eyes met mine. I don't want someone normal. I want the woman who admitted her mistakes publicly. I want the woman who risked her career to do the right thing. I want the woman who comes to my apartment at midnight and talks to me about her fears. I want you. Even knowing everything I did? Even knowing my signature kept your father imprisoned for 23 years? Especially knowing that, because it means you understand the weight of your decisions. And it means when you choose to be with me, it's a real choice, not something easy or convenient. Rebecca kissed me, slow, deep, with a desperation that spoke of weeks of separation and fear. Her hands tangled in my hair. Mine found her waist, pulling her closer on the narrow bench. When we separated, we were both breathless. And now what? Rebecca asked. How does this work? We can't keep being secret forever. I don't know. One step at a time, I guess. First, we finish celebrating my father's release. Then we figure out how to tell my family about us. Your mother will hate me. My mother hated the judge who imprisoned my father. Maybe she won't hate the woman who freed him. Or maybe she'll hate me more when she finds out I'm involved with her daughter. That's a very real possibility, I admitted. But Rebecca, I spent 23 years letting my family's pain dictate my life, letting my father's absence define who I was. And I'm tired. I'm tired of living for everyone except myself. And if you have to choose between your family and me, the question hung in the air between us, heavy as lead. Then I hope it never comes to that, I said honestly. But Rebecca, if it really comes to that point, I want to try to make it work with you. Because for the first time in my life, I feel like I have a future instead of just a past. Rebecca rested her head on my shoulder, and we stayed like that, embraced under the magnolia tree, ignoring the world moving around us. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. The words felt like jumping off a cliff, terrifying and liberating at the same time. Subscribe if you want to know how it continues. Don't miss what comes next. We stayed in the park until past midnight, talking about possible futures, about how we could make this work without destroying everything, about the steps we'd have to take for our relationship to be public without causing a scandal that would ruin Rebecca's career. We didn't have all the answers, but we had something more important, the determination to try. When we finally said goodbye, with the promise to see each other in 2 days after things calmed down with the family, Rebecca kissed my forehead. Sarah Mitchell, you're the most complicated thing that's happened to me. And is that good or bad? It's perfect, she replied, smiling. Absolutely, chaotically perfect. Life after my father's release was like learning to breathe again. For 2 weeks, the family home was a constant parade of visitors, friends we hadn't seen in years, distant relatives who suddenly wanted to reconnect, even some people from Dad's old job who came to welcome him. Dad struggled with adjustment. 23 years is a long time. The technology we used now seemed alien to him. Netflix confused him. Smartphones were mysterious. Even simple things like ordering food online or using Uber overwhelmed him. But he was trying, and that's what mattered. I divided my time between helping Dad adapt and maintaining my secret relationship with Rebecca. We saw each other 2 or 3 times a week, always at my apartment, always late at night. It was exhausting living a double life, but it was also the happiest thing I'd done in years, until everything exploded. It was 3 weeks after Dad's release. A Friday night. I'd invited the whole family to dinner at my apartment, something I rarely did, because I wanted to show that despite my absence during the initial celebration, I was committed to this new family stage. Dinner went well. Mom brought collard greens. Michael brought beer. Dad told stories about his first weeks of freedom, about how he'd forgotten what it felt like to walk in the rain or see stars without barbed wire in the way. Everything was perfect. Until someone knocked at the door at 9:30 p.m. I assumed it was Jessica. She'd mentioned she might stop by. But when I opened the door, my heart stopped. Rebecca was there, without her baseball cap, without precautions. Just her, with a bottle of wine and a smile that froze when she saw my expression of panic. "Surprise," she said. "I thought we could..." Her words died when she saw over my shoulder into the living room, where my family was clearly visible. "Rebecca," I managed to say, my voice sounding strangled. "Who is it, sweetheart?" Mom's voice from the living room. Shit. Rebecca went pale. She started backing up. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you had company. But it was too late. Mom had come to see who was at the door. And when she saw Rebecca Carter standing in the hallway, holding a bottle of wine as if coming for a casual date, her face went through a complete range of emotions: confusion, recognition, shock, and finally, fury. "What is she doing here?" Mom's voice was dangerously low. "Mom, I can explain." "Explain what? Why the judge who imprisoned your father is at your door with wine like she's your friend?" Dad appeared behind Mom. When he saw Rebecca, his expression became unreadable. "Judge Carter." "Mr. Mitchell," Rebecca responded, her voice professional but trembling slightly. Congratulations on your freedom." "Thanks to you," Dad said, with a warmth that surprised me. "I understand you reviewed my case, who found the evidence that freed me. It was the right thing to do." "The right thing?" Mom's voice rose an octave. "Now you care about the right thing? 23 years after destroying our family, now you decide the right thing matters?" "Margaret, calm down," Dad tried. "I'm not going to calm down." Mom turned to me. "And you? What's going on here, Sarah? Why is this woman at your door?" The moment of truth. I could lie. Make up some excuse. Say Rebecca was here for professional reasons. But I was tired of lying, tired of hiding. "Because I invited her," I said, raising my chin defiantly. "Because we're together." The silence that followed was absolute. "Together?" Mom repeated, as if the word were in a foreign language. "Yes, Rebecca and I are dating. We're a couple." Mom staggered. Dad held her before she fell. "No," Mom said, shaking her head. "No, this isn't happening. This can't be happening." "Mrs. Mitchell," Rebecca began, "I understand this is a shock." "A shock?" Mom laughed without humor. "My daughter is with the woman who took everything from us. The woman who stole 23 years of our lives." "Mom, please." "No." Mom looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something between betrayal and disgust. "You can't ask me to accept this. You can't ask me to be okay with my daughter being involved with her." "I'm not asking for permission," I said, my voice firmer than I felt. "I'm telling you how things are." "Then I'm telling you that if you choose to be with her, you choose not to be with this family." "Margaret, please," Dad tried to intervene. "No, David." Mom freed herself from his grip. "I'm not going to pretend this is okay. I'm not going to smile and accept that our daughter is sleeping with the woman who locked you up, She's also the woman who freed me, Dad pointed out softly. After 23 years, after stealing a life from us. I can't change the past, Mrs. Mitchell, Rebecca said, but her voice lacked conviction. How convenient. Mom, I started. No, Sarah. Mom looked directly at me. If she walks through that door, I walk out, and I'm not coming back. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You have to choose, your family or her. My heart broke in that moment, because I knew Mom meant it. I could see in her eyes this was a real ultimatum, not an empty threat. I looked at Rebecca. She stood in the hallway, still holding the wine bottle, tears rolling down her cheeks, ready to walk away, ready to let me go if it meant preserving my family relationship. I looked at Mom, decades of sacrifice carved into her face, pain and rage mixed with maternal love. I looked at Dad. He watched me with a thoughtful expression, waiting to see what I'd choose, and I made my decision. Then I guess you're leaving, Mom, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. What did you say? I said you can leave, because I'm not giving up Rebecca, not because I don't love you. I love you, Mom, more than you can imagine. But I spent 23 years living in the shadow of what happened to this family. 23 years being defined by others' pain. And I found something that's mine. Someone who makes me happy. And I'm not letting it go, just because you can't forgive. How dare you? How do I dare? My voice rose. I dare because I'm an adult. Because I have a right to choose my own life. And yes, I know it's complicated. I know Rebecca was the judge who sentenced Dad. But I also know she spent weeks finding evidence to free him. I know she risked her reputation by publicly admitting she made a mistake. I know she loves me enough to walk away if that's what I need. And I love her enough to fight for her. The silence that followed was sepulchral. Then Dad spoke. Margaret, go home. David. Go home, Dad repeated, his voice soft but firm. You need time to process this. We all need time. If our daughter chooses that woman over her family, our daughter just chose her own happiness, Dad interrupted. And after 23 years watching her sacrifice herself for us, I think she's earned that right. Mom looked between Dad and me, disbelief written on her face. You can't be okay with this. I'm not sure how I feel, Dad admitted. But I know Judge Carter gave me my life back when she had no obligation to. And I know Sarah deserves to be happy. So yes, I need time to process all this. But I'm not giving our daughter an ultimatum. That's a very real possibility, I admitted. But Mom, I spent 23 years letting family pain dictate my life. Letting Dad's absence define who I was. And I'm tired. I'm tired of living for everyone except myself. Mom looked at us both for a long moment. Then, without another word, she took her purse and left the apartment, passing Rebecca without looking at her. Michael, who'd been silently watching everything from the living room, approached. I need to leave too, he said awkwardly. This is a lot to process. I understand, I replied. When Michael left, only Dad, Rebecca, and I remained. Dad approached Rebecca. She tensed, clearly expecting more fury. Instead, Dad extended his hand. Thank you, he said simply, for what you did for me, for my family. Rebecca took his hand, tears flowing freely down her face. Mr. Mitchell, I'm so sorry. For everything. For the original sentence. For the pain I caused. For falling in love with my daughter? Dad almost smiled. That's not something to apologize for. You're not angry? Oh, I'm many things, Dad admitted. confused, overwhelmed, a little in shock, but angry. No, not with you. You did a difficult job under impossible circumstances, and when you had the chance to correct it, you did. That takes courage. Thank you, Rebecca whispered. Dad looked at me. Your mother will come back. Give her time. She's proud, but she loves you. And you? Are you okay with this? Dad considered the question for a long moment. Ask me again in a month. After I've had time to know Judge Carter as something more than the person who signed my sentence. After I see how she makes you happy. Then I'll give you an honest answer. It was more than I expected. More than we deserved. After Dad left, Rebecca and I stood in my apartment, surrounded by the remains of a ruined family dinner. I'm sorry, Rebecca said. I didn't know you had company. I should have called first. Maybe it was time for it to happen anyway, I responded. Living in secret was driving me crazy. Your mother hates me. My mother hates a lot right now, but Dad's right. She'll come back. Eventually. And if she doesn't, then I'll learn to live with that, I said, approaching her. Because Rebecca, when Mom gave me that ultimatum, when she forced me to choose between you and my family, for a second I was afraid I'd choose wrong. But then I realized there was no choice at all. I couldn't let you go. I don't want to let you go. Even if it means losing your family? My family is still here, just reconfigured. Dad's trying. Michael will come around. And Mom just needs time. Rebecca kissed me, softly and deeply, like sealing a pact we both knew had changed everything. I love you, she whispered against my lips. I love you too. And you know what? I'm not afraid to admit it anymore. We spent the rest of the night cleaning together, talking about what this meant for us, about how to make our relationship public without causing a bigger scandal, about the steps we'd have to take to protect Rebecca's career while living our lives authentically. We didn't have all the answers. But for the first time, I didn't care. Because we had something more valuable, each other, and the determination to make it work no matter the obstacles. 3 months later, things had changed dramatically. Dad had gotten a job at a small accounting firm run by an old friend who believed in second chances. He was slowly adapting to life outside prison, learning to use modern technology, rebuilding relationships that had fractured during his incarceration. Michael and I had recovered our sibling relationship. He accepted my relationship with Rebecca, though he admitted it would take time to feel completely comfortable with her. Mom still wasn't talking to me. 3 months of silence, no calls, no texts. When I visited Dad, she made sure to do it when she knew I wouldn't be there. It hurt like hell. But Dad insisted she was progressing, that she just needed more time. Rebecca and I made our relationship public carefully and strategically. First to her close colleagues, then to a wider circle. There were rumors, of course. Comments about the ethics of a judge dating the daughter of someone she'd sentenced. But Rebecca handled every question with the professional grace she'd perfected over decades. Yes, I'm in a relationship with Sarah Mitchell, she told a local reporter who'd detected the story. No, it doesn't compromise my ability to exercise impartial justice. Mr. Mitchell's case was reviewed and resolved according to the evidence presented. My relationship with his daughter began after the final decision was issued. Technically true. Conveniently omitting the fact our relationship had absolutely influenced my decision to investigate the case in the first place. I got a real job finally. Not in architecture, those bridges were burned, but in graphic design for a marketing agency in downtown Charleston. It wasn't my dream, but it paid the bills and gave me creative space. Rebecca and I moved in together to a bigger apartment in Mount Pleasant. 2 bedrooms, view of the harbor, enough space for both of us and our respective, ridiculously extensive book collections. It was Rebecca who suggested organizing a dinner. One final attempt to build bridges with my mother. "She can't hate you forever," Rebecca argued as we cooked together one Saturday afternoon. "You're her daughter. Eventually love will overcome pride." "You don't know my mother." "Then it's time I properly got to know her," Rebecca responded. "Not as the judge who ruined her life, but as the woman who loves her daughter." We organized the dinner for a Sunday night. We invited the whole family. Mom, Dad, Michael, even Aunt Helen, who'd surprisingly decided she forgave Rebecca for giving us David back. Mom almost didn't come. Dad had to convince her for days. But finally, reluctantly, she agreed. She arrived late, with an expression suggesting she'd rather be anywhere else. But she came. Dinner was awkward at first. Mom barely spoke. She answered questions in monosyllables. She avoided looking directly at Rebecca. But then Dad started telling a story about his first day at work, about how he'd completely forgotten how Excel worked, and his boss had to give him a 2-hour crash course. "I felt like a dinosaur," he joked, "a T-Rex trying to use a computer." Mom let out a small laugh. Small, but genuine. And Rebecca, bless her, seized the moment. "Mrs. Mitchell," she said softly, "I know there's nothing I can say that will erase what I did. I know you blame me for 23 years of pain, and you have every right. But I want you to know I love your daughter. Deeply, completely. In ways I never thought I'd be capable of loving someone. And I'll do everything in my power to make her happy." Mom finally looked at her directly. "Does she make you happy?" "She tries." "And you? Are you happy with my daughter?" "Happier than I've been in years." Mom nodded slowly. Then she looked at me. "Are you happy, sweetheart?" "Yes, Mom. Happier than I've been in a long time." The silence stretched. Then finally Mom sighed. "I can't promise this will be easy for me. I can't promise I'll someday look at her without remembering what we lost. But I can try. For you, because I love you, and because I want you to be happy." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. And as we sat around the table, my broken but rebuilding family, Rebecca at my side, holding my hand under the table, Dad telling more stories about his reintegration to the world, I realized something. Happiness doesn't always come in perfect packages. Sometimes it comes in the middle of chaos, in impossible decisions, in loving the wrong person who turns out to be right. Sometimes happiness is simply this: a dining table surrounded by people who love you, even when they don't understand your decisions, even when it takes them time to accept your life. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. A year later, Rebecca proposed to me. It wasn't elaborate. It wasn't in public. It was in our apartment, on an ordinary Tuesday while we cooked dinner together. "Marry me," she said suddenly, while I was chopping onions. "What?" "Marry me," Rebecca repeated, with more conviction this time. "I know it's fast. I know there are still complications. But Sarah, I've spent 43 years playing it safe, doing what's expected, and I'm tired. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine. I want the whole world to know I chose you, that you chose me. I want everything with you." I dropped the knife. Tears were already running down my cheeks. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. My mother still—" "Your mother is making progress," Rebecca interrupted. "Last week she asked me about my work. 2 weeks ago she served me food at your birthday. They're small steps, but they're steps. The scandal. We've already weathered the worst scandal. Everything else is just noise." "Then yes," I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I'll marry you." Rebecca kissed me right there in our kitchen, with the smell of onions and garlic filling the air, with dinner forgotten on the stove. And it was perfect. The wedding was small, just close family and a few friends. Mom came, though she still didn't smile much when looking at Rebecca. Dad walked me down the aisle, tears rolling down his cheeks as he handed me over to the woman who'd once sent him to prison. "Take care of my girl," he told Rebecca. "With my life," she promised. And when we kissed as newly married wives, when I heard the applause from our small congregation of family and friends, when I saw Mom discreetly wiping tears with a handkerchief, I knew we'd achieved the impossible. We'd turned tragedy into love. We'd transformed guilt into redemption. We'd taken 2 broken lives and fused them into something whole. It wasn't easy. It never would be. There would always be people questioning our relationship. There would always be scars from 23 years of pain. But as we danced our first song as wives, a slow ballad by Norah Jones that Rebecca had chosen, as I held this complicated, guilty, beautiful woman in my arms, I knew everything had been worth it. Every tear, every fight, every moment of doubt, everything had led to this, to us, to love born from the ashes of injustice, to second chances we never thought we'd have, to happiness found in the most unlikely places. And as the song ended, as Rebecca looked at me with eyes full of love and promises of future, I whispered against her lips, "Thank you." For what? For risking everything, for choosing me, for showing me that even the most broken stories can have happy endings. Rebecca smiled, that complete, genuine smile she reserved only for me. "No, Sarah, thank you, for seeing beyond the judge, for forgiving the unforgivable, for teaching me it's never too late to start over." We kissed again, ignoring the laughter and whistles from our guests. And in that moment, surrounded by family who'd accepted us, some easily, others with difficulty, we knew we'd found something no court sentence could destroy. We'd found love. Real, complicated, imperfect, beautiful love. And that, finally, was enough. If you want the continuation of this story, write it in the comments, because that's the only way I'll know what you want. And don't forget that YouTube only prioritizes subscribers. So subscribe now so you don't miss the next story that will make you believe in love and second chances. This is just the beginning.